talk to animals. My name is Shannon Cutts. I am an animal sensitive and intuitive with animal love languages. And without any further ado, this is Pearl Cutts, my nearly 23-year-old feathered sidekick. He never misses an episode. Right now, I've interrupted his delicious breakfast of, wait for it, hard-boiled egg, to film this podcast with my dear friend and wonderful animal communicator and gifted animal intuitive, Nita Gomez. So
Thank you.
Very, very privileged to have you, very privileged to grab you on one of your rare free moments with all of the different activities going on in your life and your hectic work transporting rescued animals across state lines. So thank you for being a part. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for asking me. I'm excited.
Of course. So the first thing I always like to do before I forget to do it later on is just mention how you can find Miss Gomez here. You go to www.nita, N-I-T-A, yourac.com. And that's N-I-T-A, your, as in the word your, A-C like animalcommunicator.com. And of course, you can find me and more importantly, Pearl at animallovelanguages.com. So we just want to get that out of the way. I promise I will also put it in the show notes. Today, we are here, as always, every week to talk about all things animal communication. And most importantly, to kind of, to de-woo it, to demystify what is this thing that we're calling interspecies communication? Is it really possible? Who can do it? What is it like? How does it work? If you'd like to experience it for yourself on any level, be it just to check an item off a bucket list, or maybe to, go public and actually help people and pet parents and rescued animals and wildlife, then that's what we're here to talk about, to bring it out into the open, to answer your questions and to chat with gifted animal communicators and sensitives around the world who are out there every day doing this important, powerful, life transformative work. And because of that, because people are joining us at all stages of life and from all backgrounds and walks of life, I always like to start at the beginning. So that's where we'll start. So Nita, if you will, could just give us a little bit of your background. When did you know that talking with animals was even a thing? When did you know it was even possible, and started to realize that you could do it?
It's kind of crazy. I worked in law enforcement for 20-something years, and I was just burnt out, tired. Yeah. It was exhausting, and my best friends were my 3 dogs, and I spent hours and hours and hours with them, and they're who I talked to. Sometimes I would feel like they answered, sometimes I would feel like they didn't. And as I left law enforcement, I got into taking classes on being intuitive with Sonia Choquette, meditating, that kind of stuff. And then I came across Joan Ranquet online course, and I took that, and I'm like, wow, I could do this. And it was like the first time I opened my heart, it was like the most amazing vibration of hearing what they had to say. So that was my first moment of like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Oh, that's just, I just love how you said sometimes they answered you, sometimes they didn't. And the first words that popped into my awareness were holding space, sometimes. And that's a key important piece of animal communication versus, and we'll talk about this more in future episodes, but what is the difference between, a pet psychic, an animal intuitive, an animal communicator? So here in the context of our podcast today, honey, I know. Why don't you go have your breakfast? And that's a perfect example. It's a conversation. We're having a conversation. Sometimes we're going to get a response. Sometimes it's going to be a response we love. Sometimes it's going to be a response we, wish we could change, or even try actively to change. Sometimes we're not going to get a response other than being present. And sometimes that's the most important response of all. And so if you're listening to this, or you're watching this on YouTube, you're listening on one of your favorite streaming services, And you can relate. You're looking at your animal right now, or you've got them in your mind's eye and you're thinking, I know who my best friend is. I know who I go to when I don't know where to go, because I know I'm always going to feel unconditionally loved, accepted, and supported. What better reason to want to start learning how to connect on a daily basis with more confidence, with more understanding, to actually initiate conversations rather than just going up into our heads and trying to figure it out. What is our animal saying? So let's talk a little bit more about that. What is it like? You mentioned taking some class course. I love Sonia Choquette, and we have that in common. And I've taken Joan's classes as well. She's an amazing animal communicator. And, so there's all kinds of pathways, but, what is it like talking, like, how do you start? Because I have a feeling there are people out there who are like, I think I might be doing this. I think it might be happening. So what does it feel like? Like, give us a little context.
So for me, it's just the biggest thing that I find for me is I just have to give space. I have to get quiet, and I have to allow them to come to me. I don't go to them. I open up my heart, and I'll just hear a whisper like hello, or let's play, or I'm hungry, or where's the water? It's empty. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I better go check that. And sure enough, the water's empty. So it's just opening up all your senses to be aware of what you're hearing. And for me, it took a little while. It was a challenge, but I find that if I just center myself and open my heart, it comes to me it's like music to me. It's such a beautiful vibration. So that's the best way I could describe it for me. So
it's like music. Oh, that's profound. And it's, music is such a powerful force in so many of our lives. And it's interesting to think about that. Like, if you're sitting here and you're listening to this, you're watching us and you're thinking, I don't think I can do this, or I just have so many doubts, and you're up in your head and you're kind of wrestling, what Sonia Choquette calls the bad neighborhood, or your barking dog, right? I love that analogy, or your hissing cat, or your screaming cockatiel. What would it be like to just consider that there are all kinds of music in this world? There's heavy rap, there's beautiful flowing classical, there's, mood music, there's jazz, there's pop, there's dance, techno, there's all these different kinds of music, and each conversation, each melody is different. And so one animal might be more like a rapper, and you're getting it all the time. It's a constant beat. Every time you turn around, they got something else to say. And then, maybe another animal in your life is like a flowing classical melody that's just soothing and peaceful and calming. Every conversation will be different. There are so many ways. Like you said, sometimes you get a whisper. Sometimes you just know something, like the water bowl's empty, or it's dinner time in 4.5 minutes. It's like, think about, if you're listening or watching, think about some of the things that you just kind of know in the average day. Start paying attention to that. How do I know this? Could it possibly be that my animal is talking to me? It's just not the type of conversation that I was taught how to do in school. So for those people, because it's one thing to kind of be like, I think, one day all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm going to get up I was completely not even tuned into my head at all. I was so in my sensory body. I got up. I have these little sticky things because I have about 30 house plants, and one of them had attracted a fruit fly colony. So I had these little sticky things that were supposed to it's not the most friendly thing to do, but a person just can only stand so many hours a day of fruit flies flying up their nostrils before you have to say enough is enough. Well, one of the little sticky things had fallen onto the floor, and don't have any idea how this happened, but a little green chameleon had gotten into my house and had managed to get stuck to it behind the refrigerator.
Oh no.
Now tell me, and I saw that I don't even remember what took me over to the refrigerator. I bent down, I saw this tiny flash of green. I was like, that's weird. I don't remember seeing bright yellow and bright green behind the refrigerator. This tiny little chameleon. I love these guys so much. I just adore them. It broke my heart that I had. Anyway, but the point being, that chameleon was calling to me, letting me know that he or she was stuck. And so I managed to kind of disentangle him or her and took them outside. And it was raining, and we just sat there on the step for just a few minutes. And he or she was just looking at me like, who are you? You know, it wasn't a thank you because I was the reason he or she was in the misfortune in the first place, but it was also not, dang it, you horrible human. It was like, you get me, you heard me. And it was like, so for those of you who are listening, watching, you're thinking, I just don't have any of these synchronicities in my mind, because we're taught to live in our heads, everything in school, everything that we read, our workplaces, most of the time, very structured, very rigid, very left-brained, and animal communication. I often like to say that when I first had a conversation with an animal, which happened to be an iguana, which I've shared in other episodes, I felt like parts of myself turning on. So I really just want to encourage you, as you're listening to Nita and increasingly me, and we're gonna stop that. We're heading back, but just really wanting to encourage you, think about, is the communication different with each animal in your house? How are you hearing? Little subtle whispers. Maybe different types of whispers. So talk to us a little bit. So of course, Nita and I know one another, which is such a gift, because those of you who follow us on social media know that my box turtle, Bruce, is quite an escape artist. So I want to shift gears a little bit. I've shared Nita's website. She is amazing. She does animals in the afterlife, behavior issues, just Q&A, everything you've ever wanted to know and asked your pet that you haven't, known how to do, all kinds of different issues. But one of Nita's specialties is lost animals. So I would love to hear, starting out, first of all, a little bit about what is it about? Because not everybody can do it, right? So tell us about this.
It is one of the most intense emotional things that you have to do, working with not only the animal, but the owner, the guardian. And you're trying to create calm, centered space to get the information to both of them at the same time. How can we find you? Where do you look? That kind of thing. I will tell you that I think my detective history in my previous life really has come out because I could set a pattern of how things should be and how things should work. So that's my little left brain, but then my right brain says, stay centered, stay centered, stay centered. So one thing I will tell you, you have to be very grounded, very centered at the time that you work with lost animals, because you're dowsing a map. Your energy can't affect the pendulum, and you don't want to put words into the animal's mouth that you assume is happening. So I will tell you, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of concentration. And I call friends and say, let me find a lost item in your house. And I keep tuning in. And last night I was pretty fortunate. I found an elephant on a reservation that they're saving elephants. So just for fun, I found the elephant on 100 acres, and it was great practice. So it's pretty cool.
I'll say, well, it is pretty cool because as someone who's been on the other side of this, not once, not twice, but now 3 times, Anita's worked with me on 2 of these, I guess we'll just call them cases, lost animal. Does that feel appropriate?
Yeah, moments.
Yeah, adventures, maybe. I remember, the first time Bruce went missing twice within the space of a week. The first time he was gone for 7 days. The second time it was about 4 hours. And So I remember the very first time that you and I spoke, Nita, and the first thing you said to me actually was, I don't remember how you said it, and it was so gentle and so sweet, and it got the message that what I heard was, your energy is so like crazy right now that I am vibrating. Like you said, you were like, you were like, we have to get your energy, we have to calm you down, because you're out here beating the bushes looking for Bruce, and he's going to feel this energy coming at him when he's already, you know, out there disoriented, maybe having the time of his life, but definitely way outside of what he's used to. He's going to feel this total like chaotic like maelstrom coming at him and be like, okay, I'm backing the truck up as far as I mean, he's going to run in the other direction. And you really helped me get grounded. You helped me center my energy, and you gave me a lot of brave, because I remember at one point we were following your pendulum, your map dowsing, and I went up to a house and you were like, you need to go and knock on the door and ask him to go into the backyard. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like way in like, they're all going to hate me. I'm so freaked out. And you said, no fear. Just go up and do it. I'll stay on the phone with you. And I did. And the gentleman turned out to be really nice and let me go rummage around his backyard. And see, that's the other thing, Nita, right? Because it took us 7 days. So talk about this process, you know, for those who, I mean, it's a special, I really want to emphasize this. It's a specialized discipline. You know, what was going on that I couldn't even sense.
Yeah. You know, one thing I want to say is it always helps to work in teams. So I have a few people that I work with that confirm, hey, is this what because we're dealing with living energy, living animals, and they move very fast. So if you call me 3 days later, we've lost that time. So they're further away. So it's important to do it right away. And the big thing is being open to what you're receiving. If the pendulum moves, then you move with the pendulum. You just keep the flow going and keep the energy moving and keep it at the highest vibration. So it is a very disciplined thing. You have to be very patient because it takes days. Sometimes it takes months. So you have to be open to that. And sometimes, you know, I get in my head too, and I'm like, oh, I got to call somebody, or I got to do this, or you have to be open to all the possibilities of communication, both verbally and nonverbal communication, and the energy that's flowing between the two, the animal and the guardian. And me trying to keep my ego out of it. That's a huge thing.
Which you are excellent at.
Thank you.
And true, I mean, I was we were on the phone together while I was hunting through the bushes. You were taking me through all kinds of different perspective shifting exercises. I remember one day you told me, you know, just humor me, just walk across the street and just, you know, take a big picture look at this area where we're searching in, and just see if anything tugs at your intuition. Unfortunately, the only thing that was tugging at my intuition was my left brain at that point. And so I wasn't, and so there's a lot of patience when it comes to, you know, even though we want to work with animals, we're animals.
Correct.
And
Correct.
it's like, there's one thing I learned, you know, of course, when I started animal communication, it's like, oh, this is a fairy tale and Dr. Dolittle or whatever, you know, and it's so wonderful and everybody could do this. And it's like, yeah, but there's still, I mean, there's people involved, and there's that dynamic, and there's, you know, once we start learning that this is possible, it's easy to forget that not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And not everyone, and even when you're working with a fellow communicator, that's the other piece of it. You know, those of you who are listening or watching, and you're hearing Anita saying, we work in teams, we need each other. It's true. Not all of us are called to do every type of animal communication. Not all of us are equally gifted in every area. and we need one another, which is another big part of this podcast, is sharing the wealth, the different talented, incredibly caring and gifted network that we have, and knowing sometimes I'm going to need to call someone else. I'm going to need to pass it off to this person or that person, and not being afraid or not lacking the resources, but knowing,
I think it's important that we realize we're a community, and we're only going to make animals' lives better, or our lives better in a sense, is if we share. And we're open to the new ideas. A lot of people have different ideas, and if we could open ourselves to that, and our lives get better because their lives get better, it's a great thing. I will tell you though, one of the hardest things for me in finding lost animals is when you ask me to map dows or to locate, and then you say, okay, but I'll go look in the morning. You lose that energy in between those hours. So, I mean, if you do call someone who's going to help you find a lost animal, it's important to know that if I give you a location, that you at least go look at the location within a timely manner, because then we lose that.
Exactly.
Energy.
A lot of people say, oh, I had people joking with me like, oh, you lost your turtle. Did you look in your yard? And it's like, they're faster than you think they are. And there's a lot, it's like we are so encased in our ultra modern, high-tech, temperature controlled, artificially lit environments. You get out there and your boots on the ground, and you have that experience from your days in law enforcement and the detective work you've done. The world looks different when you're looking at it from your animal's perspective. Correct. You're thinking, where would they have gone? And then staying out of your left brain. And it's like, a key piece of this, and why I'm so excited to have you on our podcast, is that one of the big delays, and this happened for me almost 7 years ago when my redfoot tortoise went missing, and that was my first real initiation into animal communication, is that I couldn't find somebody to help me.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what else to do. I mean, there was no place else in my neighborhood to put a flyer. And I was like, what else can I do? She's the size of my palm.
Yeah.
My neighborhood looks like the jungle to me because she could be anywhere. And I think I called 12 different people that I found online, and only 2 of them called me back, and only 1 of them was available. And so I worked with her, and it turned out it took us 6 days, and we found her. But there's a huge time delay sometimes in even being able to locate somebody that does this work.
Yes.
And that's another piece, not to inundate you with lost animals, but it's one of the biggest reasons people come to animal communication and even find out about it, is when their love goes missing.
And that's another thing is, I will say you have to have a level of integrity with this, because if Tom calls and says, Jim's dog's missing, will you help me find him? I can't. I have to get it from the owner. There has to be a level of permission and boundaries for what we're doing. We just can't just go up and do whatever. We have to have that permission and that bond to create the energy. So I think that's an important thing to say too. You just can't just
hugely important. It's hugely important because it's the relationship between the owner and the animal that we're working with when an animal, and talk about that a little bit, because a lot of people, they'll think, oh, my animal got out. The implication is always it was an accident. And you can use Bruce as an example if you'd like, but talk about some of the different dynamics of when an animal is missing versus they're lost or they're stolen. It's like, are they always lost?
So, sometimes animals leave because of the dynamics in the house. And again, energy. What is the energy in the house? Is it being neglected? Is it Is it jealous of another dog? Did someone come into the house that they can't bond with? There's so many factors. Sometimes there are teachers in the world and they come in, they work with you, they teach you, and then they move on to their next home to teach the next person. So we have to be aware of why they're coming and why they're going. I had a cat that was just, the lady was taking care of a hospice worker. She was taking care of someone who needed care, and the cat was just overwhelmed with the grief and the sadness in the house. It had to leave, and sometimes I never know the outcome, if they've come back or if they haven't. But they have feelings and emotions and needs just like we do, and if they're not being fulfilled, yes, sometimes they leave. Sometimes they want to go out on a great adventure. Bruce Almighty likes his adventures, and and so you have to be aware of that. Also, sometimes they just get scared and lost, and there's a whole different way of calming them down and doing energy work to calm them down so they could communicate better. And so some leave because they're sick and dying, and it's time for them to leave, and that's how they choose. That's their path of death, and we have to allow that to happen too. So various reasons.
There's a lot of, you can see that now, those of you who are, watching and listening. It's a huge initiation into this very specialized sector of animal communication. Just like not all of us are, licensed marriage and family therapists, or gifted detectives and law enforcement. I mean, it's no different regardless of species, right, my love? Yeah. Mwah.
Yeah.
We have to, there's the wonder and the joy of knowing that interspecies communication is possible, and then there's the discipline. I love your music example again. I grew up as a musician. I have a great ear. I have good rhythm. I have all of those things. I still had to practice for hours and hours every single day in order to have any level of competence if I wanted to share those gifts with others or even fully enjoy them myself. And it's the same here, especially because, once this is really it feels like part of the upliftment and up-leveling of our planetary consciousness, not to get too out there for those of you who are brand new, but it feels like just opening our eyes on a whole different level to realize, why is my animal my best friend?
Right.
Can you, just ponder the depth of the enlightenment, because the word that's coming to mind, which is not the word I'm looking for, but that you have to be in to be able to exude unconditional love so consistently.
Right.
And that's the being that we're speaking with. That's the being that we're trying, in the case of lost animals that we're trying to bring home. This is the relationship that we're working on. And it's always a choice to come back. It may not have been a choice to leave, but it may or may not have been. But it's always going to be a choice. And then there's all the dynamics and the intricate and the fancy footwork that you have to do to actually bring an animal home.
And that's a very good point. Once you bring them home, if the dynamics and the energy in the house doesn't change, then you're going to be faced with the same situation. So you have to be able to be open and give that space to come to an agreement of how things could change, and be willing to do it. Be willing to, maybe their behavior is what has to change to make the human a little bit more comfortable in them being there. But I believe that all animals are teachers, and we are actually the students, and they're going to teach us to ground ourselves, to love ourselves, to have joy, to make better decisions. That they come into our lives to open us up to those kind of things.
They sure do. They sure do. Well, I'm very grateful to you and your team for bringing Mr. Bruce back home. And those of you who are connected with us over on Instagram, we're at Love and Feathers and Shells. You can actually watch a video. I actually walk everyone around the block, show you the whole route that Bruce took, and you can visualize 7 days of searching under every rock and in every bush. And Nita and I were on the phone for quite a bit of it. And she would do her map dowsing, and I would run out at 10:30 at night with a flashlight to, scrounge through the neighbor's bushes. And it was like that. Or at 7 a.m, she'd send me new coordinates, and I would be, busting out of the house in my pajamas to go run around and that's the level of responsiveness. You really find out what your commitment is. How fast can you move everything else in your life around? How willing are you to get granular and grungy? I mean, I would come home stinking and sweating, and I don't think there's any point on my body a mosquito hasn't reached and bitten. I've got one right there in my throat right now. It's just beautiful. And it's just, and so it's, what I hope that we're offering everyone today who's watching or listening, especially those of you who might be interested in doing this work. Maybe you have, a real interest because it's so specialized and there's so many, and that, you need to do that. And you mentioned very briefly the energy work to even calm the animal down. That's a whole other facet of this work. It's animal communication is the umbrella. There's lots of other things underneath it, and you get to pick what you add to your toolkit and how you use it, and adjust as you go along. But it's really important to just realize when you're dealing with one of these kinds of situations, this is why it can be a little tougher to find someone, even somebody that's normally available. Maybe they're not always available. Maybe they're not available right at that moment. And so having that network, so you don't have to wait 3 days like I did before you find somebody who can help you when Malty went missing, and have that deep respect. Go ahead. Yeah. You blipped out.
And actually, it was a mutual friend of ours that brought us together. So again, it's teamwork. Everybody helping each other, and that's
exactly
pretty amazing.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can search back in our archives for. You go to animallovelanguages.com/podcast and check out Tammy Hendricks and Melinda Donaldson, because they are two of the triad that was supporting me, along with Nita, kind of taking point. Right. It's like having a detective team, truly. And you can listen to their stories as well and understand a little bit more of the context of what each person brought into the mix to help bring this animal home. And that was our wholehearted focus for the whole 7 days was Bruce. And of course, Bruce loved it.
Oh yeah, he loves the attention.
He loved it. And in fact, it was sad because at one point, he said to me, Mom, you're paying more attention to me now in these last 7 days than you did during the whole last year that we were together. And unfortunately, in fact, right in the middle of when Bruce was lost, I had to take 2 days off from searching for him because we were burying my dad. So there was a lot of grief. There was a lot of, benign neglect because life was happening, and it happens. It's not about blaming yourself when your animal goes missing. It's about let's take what we've learned thus far and build a brighter future. Not to sound too cheesy, but life happens. This is not about guilting or shaming yourself. This is about reaching out, recognizing, as Byron Katie sometimes says, this is a friendly universe. It might not feel like it, but it is a friendly universe. If you ask for help, we are here to help you. If you need help with your animal, we are here. Everyone that you're listening to on the podcast, myself, Nita, Tammy, Melinda, and all the wonderful communicators in our network, we are here to help you. Okay, so you're not going through this with your animal alone. So Nita, share with us a little bit more. We're about at the end of our time here, but share a little bit more about, how people can reach you and the different ways that you like to work with people, and just, how they can stay in touch with you, even if maybe they're just soaking it all in right now. What would be those next steps if someone wants to experience this for themselves with you?
I'm new to this just like you are. I think I'm just finally being seen as a communicator. So I'm learning all the social media stuff. It's going to be a balance. So
there's always more to learn.
Yes, definitely. Best way right now is through my website, and just send an email what you need, what I could help you with. I do a heart connection for animals who have passed, which has been phenomenal. It's opened up people's heart to accept new animals into their lives. I really work in the healing, panic, anxiety, working with rescue animals. I find that we could change that for them by just changing their energy and helping them move that negative energy out. Amazing results I've had, from a bulldog to being very fear aggressive to now he gets along with the other dogs and other cats. So it's possible to make their lives better. I work with lost animals, and I'm finding it is exciting. It's a lot of work, but it really, at the end of the day, to know that your animal came home and I had a hand in it is priceless.
Phenomenal.
And most important, I work with the humans. I want the humans to be balanced. Am I balanced to bring a new puppy into the house? Am I balanced to bring a second puppy in the house? What do we need to do to have a happy energy so a new cat, frog, turtle, anything could come into the house where it's beneficial for everybody. So my whole thing is I want to create space so everyone could live a balanced life. That's kind of been my motto. So
what a beautiful motto to have, and a challenging one. And it's easy to see why we would want to have a team working with us.
Definitely.
You know, especially, I mean, caring for one animal. Those of you who are watching on YouTube and have seen the interaction going on here between Pearl and my necklace and my braid and my whole body and his whole environment. One animal, then you add 2 animals, and you add 3 animals. Sometimes you have 4 or 5 animals. And it's nice to have some help.
I currently have 8 rescue dogs in my house.
Yeah. So yes.
And they all have their personalities, and it's great. So
it's great. It's great. And it's also nice to have, you know, pet parent backup support system. So that's what we're here to offer you at Let's Talk to Animals. That's what Nita's here, nitayourac.com, and you can find out more about all of Nita's services. You'll find her website is heartfelt, beautiful, and simple. It's easy to navigate, and it's easy to understand where your need might fit in. So, and of course you can reach Pearl and Malty and Bruce, our great adventurer, over at animallovelanguages.com. I also want to encourage those of you who are brand new, maybe this is the first episode you've ever listened to and you're just curious. I have a free animal communication camp. You can find that under free tools. It's 5 days of teaching you, you know, when Nita was talking about some animals come in as a whisper, some come in as a knowing, some come in as other kinds of sensory information. It just walks you through it in 5 days, takes 5-10 minutes tops, and you can just start to wake up. Another thing I'll share is one of the very best ways, and the way I first experienced animal communication after reading a book about it, was I booked a session for me and my interspecies family. And so if you're listening today and you'd like to have that experience, it's pretty hard for your left brain to argue you out of it when everything in you is screaming, this is totally my animal. I've had so many clients say, oh my God, I knew they were going to say that. It's like, that's because you're intuitive too. And that's a pretty cool feeling to have. So I strongly encourage you to consider it. Nita, it has been such an honor and a joy. Thank you for reuniting me with my boy.
You're welcome.
I just don't have the words. I don't have the words. So
it was truly my honor. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. It was such a blessing. I thought about bringing him in to be on the show today, and then I realized it would be hard to record the podcast on the ground. So
yes, it would.
But you can check him out over. I have some snapshots and head over on Instagram, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. It's been a joy, and thank you to all of you who are watching or listening. Please share this podcast or this video with a friend that has animals that might enjoy learning a little bit more about why they are the way that they are and why we are the way that we are when we're with them, please give us a like, give us a share, give us a review or an emoji, or send us a heart. If you have any questions, or you'd like to hear from somebody I haven't interviewed yet, send us a message and we'll do our very best. I'll send them a picture of cute parrots and puppies, and hopefully that will convince them, right, to be on the show. We love you. We love your love for animals, and let us know how we can be of service to you. Okay. Thank you again, Nita. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.